Showers and thunderstorms already beginning to make it onto areas of the South Florida Peninsula. Plus, we're getting this general circulation with a wind that's coming in out of the east. And with that easterly wind flow, you start to pick up these showers and thunderstorms moving onshore. And a couple of these actually could contain some pretty strong sheared winds, so that we could possibly see some severe weather from some of these storms that move in a little bit later today. I think most of the day it's going to be pretty nice, though, if you had thought about evacuation, if you have been ordered to evacuate, if it's a voluntary evacuation, whatever. Pretty nice weather to be out and about and getting to your shelters. So that's good news. As we head into the later evening hour, we'll probably see some deteriorating weather. And as we head into mid-afternoon, maybe even some of these outermost fringes of the circulation around Irma will begin to lift northward and move a little bit closer to us. Some of these storms as well specifically could perhaps contain some tornadic activity. We'll watch for that. Mostly it's a South Florida threat and a southwest Florida threat. This is the visible satellite imagery, and you can clearly see the eye pretty well defined. It had filled up with cloud cover earlier on, an indication of a weakening system. But it does seem to me that we're starting to see a little bit of clearing. Now, part of that is sun angle, but also I think we might be looking at a more uniform, rounded eye as it lifts further away from the coastline of Cuba. The further away it gets from the coastline of Cuba, the more likely we are to see some fairly rapid redevelopment of this system as it gets out into these warmer straits of the Keys waters here. They're low shear waters, they're warm waters, and the Florida Straits will be very conducive for further development. So as you look to the south, we're starting to see some wind gusts here that are approaching tropical storm force or exceeding in parts of the Keys. In fact, most all of the Keys have seen wind gusts in excess of tropical storm force. Across the region right now, a general easterly wind flow continues. That's helping to produce some stronger winds over on the other coast. Haven't seen continued stronger winds over on our coast, and certainly nothing here locally. So as I mentioned, a good day to be out and about. Just be careful if you're putting up shutters today. If you waited till today to do that, I'm going to tell you, we're going to see some gusty winds coming in with some of the thunderstorms a little bit later on in the afternoon. And a lot of people in the pre-storm preps get injured by those storm shutters because they'll get cut, or the storm shutters will flap around because the winds have been picking up just a little bit. So be careful. Be careful of that. Otherwise, not a bad day today, except we'll be dodging those showers and thunderstorms. Wind speeds across the area pretty nice. So, 125-mile-an-hour storm system, Category 3, lifting out of Cuba, heading up toward the Florida Straits, toward areas of the Keys. Probably is a Category 4 storm, doing that by tomorrow morning. It's going to be bad news for the Florida Straits. They're going to see some very heavy flooding, and they're going to see some significant wind damage, I think. A lot of the buildings in the Florida Keys are, of course, built to the very high standards, but nevertheless, I think that we're looking at some pretty bad damage. And then as we get up closer to the coastline of South Florida, there's going to be some really, really bad storm surge down here. I think there we could be looking at really anywhere from 10 to 16-foot storm surge from areas in this concave area, especially right here from like Bonita Springs southward. I think there could be some really serious bad storm surge there. Then as the storm lifts north, we are looking for the increase in our wind speeds around here. And that's going to occur during the nighttime on Sunday night into Monday morning. And I don't like nighttime storms. I think they are even scarier. But that looks like what's going to happen. And intensity forecasts this far out are really hard to do. So I know we're seeing a Category 4 storm here with 140-mile-an-hour winds beginning to make landfall pretty close to us. But again, those wind speeds could be a little higher, or they could be lower. And we still don't know that yet. Plus, there's still some cone of uncertainty here as this lifts further to the north about exactly where it makes landfall. And the general trend has been to nudge this system further to the west. And we're still a good time frame out to where we can make refinements in this computer model and maybe shift the track. We saw that with Charlie, right? And so the same thing could apply here. So let's expect the worst, or expect the best, I should say, and prepare for the worst. And the worst would be probably a Category 3 or 4 hurricane making its way very close to, if not over us. Kind of the storm we never wanted to see. Kind of a worst case scenario track right now. But things could change. So Sunday night, we start to see the wind speeds pick up. They pick up to tropical storm force during the dinner hour or higher to hurricane force. And then during the nighttime, after the sun sets, after most of us would have gone to bed and had a good night's rest, we'll be looking for those winds to spike during the depth of the night. 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, we'll probably see our worst winds on Sunday night into Monday morning. And at that point, we could see some very strong winds. Then that system lifts northward. As it lifts northward and it gets north of us, then we have to be careful, because when it lifts north, we start to see the winds kind of die down just a little bit, and we think, oh, that's a good thing. But the winds will also be shifting onshore. And it's really when you start to feel those winds shift from the northeast to the north, and then eventually to the northwest, that you have to start being concerned about the storm surge. And that will occur probably during the morning hours of Monday into Monday afternoon as it continues to lift northward. So let's take a look at the few issues that we have going on. First of all of the computer models are now pretty much agreeing on a West Coast Florida landfall. We had that computer model that came out from the Hurricane Center forecast track at 11. We'll have another one tonight at 5 o'clock. Hopefully that will show further refinements. Hopefully it will show the storm system either weakening or moving further to the west. That's a hope, or even better, way further to the west. We'll see how that plays out, and of course we'll bring that to you as soon as we find out. But computer models are continuing to hone in on a suggested track that takes it really in the storm we never wanted to see. European model has been performing pretty well. It called with pretty good accuracy the time at which it would be lifting northward out of Cuba, and we continue to see a forecast track from the Hurricane Center that's pretty closely following this model. So as we continue through time, we'll watch this system. It's shifted, it seems, a little bit further to the west, but not significantly so, lifting up into areas of Georgia later on. The surge models. Everybody's asking about surge right now, and you heard Ed McCrane earlier this morning in a press conference, and he spoke with people from the Hurricane Center, as he does frequently during the day, and via the Hurricane Center through Ed McCrane, you've heard about the storm surge being 6 to 10 feet. Well, this is a storm surge map that's produced by the Hurricane Center every 4 minutes, I wish it was every 4 hours, and it shows the inundation of the water above your toes. That's new, a way to present information this time from the Hurricane Center this year. And it shows many places along our barrier islands, especially the concave sections, where you see the coastline kind of forming a cup, right, around the incoming hurricane. That is the area where the biggest storm surge will be felt. And that's true all along areas of central Longboat Key, southern Longboat Key. They have inundated storm surge, which you see in the yellow, of greater than 3 feet. 3 feet above your toes if you're standing right there on central Longboat Key. And then as you go further to the south around Siesta Key, situation's not better. In fact, the further south you go, the greater the impacts will be. But again, look here, the curved coast of Siesta Key picking up perhaps 3 feet above toe level of water out here. And most of the location seeing at least a foot. Then you go further south, Roberts Bay is going to have some issues, of course, especially upstream, and then even further south where Myakka dumps into Charlotte Harbor, the Peace River dumps into Charlotte Harbor. Upstream of that, you get some areas where you're looking at a 3-foot storm, a 3-foot above toe level issue with the water rising as well. But beyond that, you're starting to see some greater than 6 foot. See that right there in the key? That's the orange color. You're starting to see that pop up in places as well, around Rotunda, perhaps around Punta Gorda, areas down to the south. It's going to be a bad situation. if that forecast track does not change, and we need to plan on it not changing. The wind speeds we're pretty much assured a least tropical storm force. This purple color you see here, these are hurricane center probabilities of tropical storm force winds, and they're coming in at about 100%. So we're going to see that. Hurricane force winds, better and better agreement on the possibility of hurricane force winds. Right now we're up to about an 80 to 90% chance of seeing hurricane force winds. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see those chances going up, and the probability of even stronger winds, and I'm talking 80 miles an hour to 110 miles an hour with gusts as high as 140. And we should prepare for, as I mentioned, a Category 2 or 3 storm. And we may get a Category 4. We'll have to wait and see. Now, as far as the rainfall goes, that is another huge problem. You remember the flooding issues that we had with a 20-inch pockets of rainfall last time we had that rain event a couple of weeks back. Well, we could see it again. And the ground is saturated now. This rainfall map shows the area highlighted in yellow here having a high probability of heavy rainfall. And now the Hurricane Center is talking about 10-inch rainfalls not being out of the question across Central Florida and West Central Florida, and maybe isolated pockets of 20-inch rainfalls as well. Thunderstorm issue is also a problem. We talked about that. We talked about the potential of perhaps seeing some tornadic activity associated with some of those storms. And if you look at the power outage index, folks, I think we just have to be prepared for the fact that we are going to see the power go out. We're going to see the power go out. In many locations, we'll see the power go out for multiple days, perhaps even weeks, as they have to rebuild not only the lines, but rebuild some of the infrastructure with the power lines if the forecast track holds true and confidence is growing. So prepare for that. Okay, Sunday tides. Here's your forecast. This is a low tide coming your way at 10:30 Sunday night, followed by a high tide in the morning at 3:47 and another low tide at 11:47. Steve's working on some tidal information for various other places besides Sarasota Bay, and we'll be showing you that throughout the day today. Extended range forecast, well, today not a bad day. Watch for showers and thunderstorms. Winds begin to pick up as we head into the evening. There could be some stronger severe storms occasionally later in the afternoon. We'll watch for that. But then particularly tomorrow, you will wake up in the morning to some stronger wind gusts up to about 30, 40, 50 mile per hour through the morning hours. And then tomorrow night is game day. That's when we see the really heavy winds move in. Still refining the forecast in terms of exactly where the eye will move across the state of Florida or out in Gulf waters. Still refining the forecast for how strong that storm will be. But as I said, plan on the nighttime hours of Sunday night into Monday morning being a pretty rough time with some howling winds and possibly some pretty destructive winds as well. We'll be updating you throughout the day and keeping you informed at top and bottom of the hour, as well as with special newscasts.